Hello everybody, welcome to Totally Tabled. My name is Shaggy, and today I'm running down my top 10 one-of-a-kind games. These are 10 board games that just feel like no other to play. They don't all have some crazy gimmick. In fact, on paper, a lot of them don't seem that special. But when you get in there and you actually play the game, they provide a unique experience that no other game can provide. Now, before we get started, this video has been sponsored by Forgotten Tales and their new board game, Sirens: The Deep Sea, currently seeking funding on GameFound. In Sirens, you will explore the deep sea, collect resources, construct buildings, develop your sirens, and fight against monsters, either using the free mode or one of the many scenarios. For more information, check out their crowdfunding campaign. A link is in the description below. And with that, let's go ahead and get started with the list. MicroMacro Crime City is like a mashup of Where's Waldo with a murder mystery. Players cooperatively try to solve a mystery by consulting this gigantic map filled with the tiniest little black and white drawings. The trick is this map represents both space and time. Several moments of time are superimposed together. So you might see a dead body somewhere, and then if you look a little bit to the left, you'll see them walking around alive. Well, that was just them moments before their death, and you can trace their steps throughout the day. And you use that in order to solve different questions about who murdered them, what did they use, why were they murdered. You often have to find, hidden clues or use a little bit of deduction and reasoning. And it's just a ton of fun to try to uncover the story behind these different murders. There's definitely nothing else like this in board gaming. That's MicroMacro Crime City. Coffee Roaster is a bag building game about brewing the perfect cup of coffee. You're really trying to tune your bag by removing some of the bad stuff that's in there using different special abilities, and also pulling out unroasted beans and then roasting them and putting them back in your bag. And doing that over and over again as long as you want until you decide that the bag is in the best shape that it can be. You then stop phase 1 and you move on to phase 2, where you just pull one token out of the bag, one at a time, placing it on your cup, trying to hit an exact number and get the right flavor tokens in there. I've never played another game with this particular kind of structure where you can just basically end the first phase of the game whenever you want, whenever you feel like your bag has been properly roasted. It just really provides this great element of push your luck, and it feels unlike any other bag builder that I've played. When you add in the quirky art and this incredibly unique theme, and the fact that it's solo only, well, this is just an incredibly unique game, and one that I highly recommend. In fact, I've done a full playthrough of this one on the channel, so if you haven't checked that out, go do so. But that's Coffee Roaster. Carnival Zombie 2nd Edition is a tower defense zombie survival game. Now, on paper, that sounds like 100 other board games, but there's several things that set this apart. First of all, this is not your typical zombie apocalypse. The art and the setting of this flooding Venice is so different and so creative. It really transports you to this different world. Your goal in this game is to escape the city, and you can do it in many different ways. And depending on which one you take and sort of which route you take out of the city, you're going to have a different final round. You're going to have like a different mini game that you have to win in order to win the whole game. And I've never really played another game like that, where you almost get to choose what your final scenario is going to be as you play. But the thing that sets this apart over all the other zombie games is that as you're killing the zombies, which are represented by little cubes, you have to drop them onto this little cardboard platform known as the pile of corpses. And any cubes that fall off that platform then get respawned onto the map. Right? They come back to life and they start attacking you again. But you heard me right. There is a just random dexterity element to this game. And it sounds like that should just not work at all. It sounds like those two things should clash, but it works fantastic. It's thematic. It builds up some real tension. At first, it's really easy to drop those cubes onto the pile of corpses, but the more zombies you kill, and as you become more desperate to escape, those pile up and the zombies start falling off and they come back on and you start to get overwhelmed. The added tension is just terrific and creates a very unique experience. So anyway, there you go. That is Carnival Zombies 2nd Edition. Innovation is a civilization building card game. You'll be drawing cards and then playing them out into a tableau in front of you. And there's 5 different colors of cards, and so you're making these 5 different stacks. And whatever card is on top of that stack has a special ability that you can activate. And these abilities will, attack your opponents or let you improve your tableau by splaying the cards in the stack that are under the top card in various different directions, which will expose these icons which are powering the special abilities of your cards. It's incredibly clever, and the basic rules are pretty simple. The complications come from these crazy special abilities that do all manner of things, and they just get crazier and crazier as you go through the eras. Moving from antiquity all the way to current and future technologies. There is no other game that is this swingy and crazy and chaotic. There are so many different things that can play out, so many different ways that the game can go that you can't predict. It's almost like every game is a completely new experience. I like to call this game the pinnacle of the Take That card game. That's innovation. PAX Pamir 2nd Edition is a tableau builder where players take the role of Afghan leaders in the 19th century. And as Afghan leaders, you're going to be allying yourself to one of the great superpowers, either with the British, the Russians, or the Afghans. And you can even shift and change your alliances throughout the game to fit your own purpose. But you're going to be purchasing these cards that are in a market, creating a little tableau, and then activating actions that are on those cards to do all sorts of different things. But in general, you're trying to get, whatever faction you're allied with, you want them to have dominance on the board. You want them to have a bunch of pieces out there controlling a bunch of regions so that when these dominance check cards come out, your power is in the lead, and then you'll get points based on whether or not you're the most sort of influential with that superpower. And again, sort of on the face of it, just sort of describing the game, it doesn't sound that different than other games of this sort, but in practice, in play, it feels so unique. I think it's because you have so few actions and there's so little that you can do. It's all about timing and positioning yourself. There's a lot of coalition building and coalition breaking. There's a lot of intrigue. You feel kind of powerless, and the moves you make are very subtle. This is one of my favorite games of all time. That's PAX Pamir 2nd Edition. The next game is Doomtown Reloaded, or the new edition, Doomtown Weird West Edition. This is a collectible card game or trading card game style, but it's more of a living card game or an expandable card game, whatever you want to call it. And God knows there's a ton of these. Doomtown is so different because of its emphasis on tactical movement. Each player is going to be playing location cards down on their side of the street, building out a row of locations with a town center in between them. Certain locations will also be out of town, which is like a separate location. And you'll have these character cards, which sort of make up your posse. And they'll start in your home, but you'll be moving them around to the different locations or to the town center. Each of these characters has a certain amount of influence, and the goal is to have the most influence in these locations because that's going to give you control. And the way you win is by having more control points than your opponent has influence. And so you can achieve that by just taking over a lot of locations, or you can kill off your opponent's characters, which will have, make them have less influence. But as you're moving your characters around, certain movements will cause the character to tap, to exhaust. And when they're exhausted, they can't move anymore, and they can't perform their special abilities. They can't attack, they can't do stuff like that. And so you really have to be careful with how you move around. Getting into fights can also force your opponent to exhaust their characters or even kill their characters, remove them. And this is another cool thing about this game, is that any sort of shootouts are resolved through playing hands of poker. Because every single one of your cards in your deck is also like a regular suit and value that you'd find in just a regular playing card deck. And since you built your deck, you can like stack the deck with a lot of, kings or queens or something. And so when you're playing these hands of pokers, you can have cheating hands. You can have 5 of a kind, or you can have, a 4 of a kind that has 2 of the same exact card. That's totally legitimate. The problem is your opponent might have cards that are anti-cheating cards that they can play from their hand that will punish you for cheating. So you have to decide, do I think they have one of those cards? Should I maybe take a lower poker hand? Maybe I'll just do a 3 of a kind or 2 pair rather than taking that 4 of a kind and cheat. It makes for a really interesting dynamic and just super fun. This is by far the most thematic and cinematic card game I've ever played. It doesn't feel like anything else. That's Doomtown Reloaded. Galaxy Trucker is a real-time tile-laying game. That combo has rarely been done before, and even when it has been, it doesn't feel like Galaxy Trucker. So in the first part of the game, everyone is going to be simultaneously drawing tiles from just a central face-down group of tiles and building out their spaceship on their board, filling it with lasers and crew quarters and rockets and engines, shields, batteries, and storage containers. And there's very simple rules for how the tiles fit together. There are these pipes at the end, and there's either 1, 2, or 3 sort of pipe connections. And so you have to attach, 1 to 1, 2 to 2, or 3 can attach to anything. So everyone's frantically putting their ship together. And then in the second phase, you send your ships out and you run through an encounter deck where you're going to face all sorts of challenges. You might have meteors, you might have, pirates coming out and shooting at you. And you're going to roll dice to see where it hits your ship, and there's all these rules. Like if a meteor hits a side of your ship that has exposed connectors on it, then it will destroy that piece. Things like that. And then you can use batteries to put your shields up to try to block things. Some things will go through your shields, and slowly your ship is kind of falling apart. And that's the fun of it, is that, certain pieces could cause an entire half of your ship to just fly away and become detached. You'll inevitably have these weak points, and you're just hoping that the dice don't roll those numbers. And then there'll also be good stuff that comes up, like, planets where you can collect goods, put them in your storage, and if you survive till the end, then you get to sell that stuff for money. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to earn the most money. With the right group, this is the most hilarious, fun game in existence. Definitely a one-of-a-kind game. That's Galaxy Trucker. Robinson Crusoe Adventures on the Cursed Island is on every one of my lists, and it's on this one too. I won't belabor this. I talk about it all the time. I have 3 full solo playthroughs up on the channel. Go check those out. I had to put it on the list because there really is no other game like it. Again, on the surface, you might go, cooperative, action selection game, survival. Doesn't really seem that unique. Even recently, there's been some games that have taken parts of Robinson Crusoe and incorporated into their designs, Frostpunk, Halls of Hegra. What sets Robinson Crusoe apart are the scenarios. Lots of games are scenario-based, but almost none have a King Kong scenario, and a Jurassic Park scenario, and a Lord of the Flies scenario. In this game, you could be stranded on a deserted island and have to build a raft to escape before a hurricane comes, or you could decide to live on the island and try to create a stable and safe environment for your family, or you could be on a reality show, both trying to survive and stick to some script that the producer has written. The absolute crazy variety of themes and gameplay that come out of these scenarios, how different each one feels from the other, It's astounding. And now with the Book of Adventures, that's even adding to that. No other game has even attempted to do anything like this. So I'm sorry for having to talk about it again. I can hear the eye rolling. Sorry, but not sorry. That's Robinson Crusoe. Dungeon Petz is another one that on paper sounds pretty much like any other game. It's just a worker placement game. God knows we have enough of those. In this one, you're running a pet shop, but the twist is these aren't really pets. These are little monsters that you're going to be raising and then selling to dungeon lords to protect their dungeons from heroes coming in. So it's a cute theme. It ties to another game called Dungeon Lords. And it does have a very unique and fresh take on worker placement, where everyone, all the players simultaneously, are going to be using their little imp figures and putting them into different groups. Then everyone reveals, and turn order is based on the strongest groups. Turn order is obviously very important in a worker placement game. So you might build like a couple of really strong groups so that you can go first, but you're going to be taking less actions. Whereas you might do a lot of little weak groups so you can take a lot of actions, but all the good spots might be taken. Really clean and clever and works so well. And if another game has stolen that, I haven't played it. But that's not what makes Dungeon Petz so unique. It really has to do with the pets themselves. There are very few, if any, board games that really deal into the, nitty-gritty of taking care of a pet, meeting their needs, making them happy, making sure they're fed and they're healthy and they grow up and they have the nurture that they need. Dungeon Petz does that, and it does it in such a simple way with this very simple card system. Basically, each different pet has a different group of cards that you get to draw from. There's like 4 different colors. And they represent different things like, hunger or anger or magic or play. But the trick is that there are different symbols in there. So while the green deck, for instance, is mostly about eating, about half the cards in the green deck have that food icon, which means that your pet is going to need to eat. There's other icons in there too. And so it means your pet might surprise you. You can sort of anticipate their needs and what they're gonna want, but you also have to be prepared for the unexpected. And it makes them feel alive and has a real personality. Pretty cool accomplishment for what is just a worker placement Euro game. So anyway, there you go. That's Dungeon Petz. And my number 1 has to be Cosmic Encounter. This was the first game that came to mind. It's truly amazing how after all of these years and so many games that have been inspired by it, just nothing else is like Cosmic Encounter. If you don't know, this is a negotiation game where all the players are playing as different alien races with crazy, crazy special abilities. Every player has 5 planets in front of themselves and a bunch of ships. And on your turn, you're going to draw a card, and that's going to show which player you're going to have an encounter with. You're going to sort of pick one of their planets to attack or to threaten to attack, and then you're going to have a little bit of a negotiation where you can sort of, offer terms to work together, to each take a planet of each other's, or you can go in for the attack, put in some ships, play an attack card that has a value on it. You can also invite the other players to come and help out, and if they do, then they'll get a reward. So you might have some players on attack, some on defense, you play the cards, you see who wins, and then there's also just crazy special abilities, take that cards, it's chaos. And the goal is just to, take over a certain number of planets. And it's possible that multiple players could win at the same time. But I think the thing that really sets it apart is just these player powers. Well, there's just so many of them, so many of these different alien races, and they're all just insane. The way these things can change up the game and radically affect the strategy and how the negotiations will play out. I really don't think any other game reaches this level of insanity. Truly a one-of-a-kind classic. That's Cosmic Encounter. And there you go, my top 10 one-of-a-kind board games. What other games did I miss? Please let me know in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please think about subscribing to the channel. But there you go, that does it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.